So we'll go into a little circle here. Just 1 second. I just want to write this stuff up here again. Just as a reminder, right? That communication. For those of you who weren't here, we're going to work on just some of this belief stuff. But remember, 7%, 38%, and 55%. Your body language. Number 2 is what? I'm half asleep and I'm still remembering this. Come on. Tone, right? And 7% is words, right? That's just they just talk about that. Those are the forms of communication. We talk about persuasion, right? How we persuade versus whether we're going to manipulate. The reality is that the same. It's really the same skill sets. The only difference is what? Intent. The intent, right? Intentions. The one person has, and just those 3 areas. Again, if we want to persuade someone, image. What else? Voice. Our voice, right? Our speech and. All right. So I'm putting that up there just as you go through this, and then remember, right? If there was this table, right? We're going to make it a square table today. All right, almost square. All right, your beliefs, whatever beliefs you have. We talked about the reasons next to this, right? We talked about the because. We talked about we could even put up words like ideas, but each one of these legs. And so today you're supposed to come with your beliefs, and these beliefs, right, are all those reasons. I believe this, and then it's I believe it because, and you need to find out why. But we talked about using words like how instead of, and what instead of what. Why? Exactly, right? We want to make sure we're not using as a general statement the word why. Will you ever hear me use why? Yes, but it will never be from a place of combativeness. I won't combat with why. I won't make them wrong because of that. Then we talked about, just as we move through this today, we talked about empathy, right? And our ability, can we accept someone? Or let's just say, can we accept them and not agree? Or I'm going to say not agree. And the answer is, I hope so. I was presenting to the University of Utah yesterday, and we're trying to become the real estate company of the entire University of Utah, and their hospitals and all these things we're trying to do with them. And we actually got into this thing. They talked about their diversity and all these different things. And seems like no matter where I am, in fact, I think, Kinsey was there. It was in a very inappropriate comedy club in Las Vegas. And do you remember that? And I have this guy in the middle of who's on stage, and he's like, and you are a white man with your trophy wife, Republican, and he just goes off on me. This comedian does. And of course, we're having a big laugh with this thing. And I'm like, well, gosh, that's probably kind of right. That's pretty close. I'm like, and the thing that was funny, of course, at the U, I had to talk about our diversity, talk about, 70% of our leadership team is women and in senior positions, and it was actually but the whole point was, and I actually brought this up, is the real tragedy of today's world is, can you accept another human being? And we talked about this yesterday. Can we love another human being despite whether we may not agree with them? And you got to be careful with that, right? You got to be careful with, you use words like I'll tolerate you, right? That doesn't seem like I can tolerate you. Well, that seems a little scary. That doesn't seem that I'm loving and accepting you, right? The key is, I always have, here's just a little side note I didn't say yesterday for me, but I'm always just interested in 2 things, whatever someone's doing with their life. Number 1, are they growing? And number 2, are they contributing? And I used to get really worried about what people were participating in, but boy, if you can do those 2 things, and he'll probably say it even tomorrow, because it's kind of one of his taglines, which is, in simple words, decide. Does anyone know how this goes? Decide what you believe. Does anyone know what it'll say next? Decide what you believe and live it. That's the challenge is, very few people. Even though this is going to be about the sales side of it as we get up here, very few people really decide what they ultimately believe. They kind of just wander around in life on the beliefs of other people. If you say, was that all bad? No, so you have wonderful parents, like I know Isabel's parents, right? But the question is, do you believe it? Do you believe what they believe? And that doesn't mean you don't, but just have you ever asked? And I have those fundamental questions I always ask. Number one, the days of my liberation of just living the life that I want to design came with the idea of, number one, decide what I believe and live it. But there was a few other things before that. The question was, if I was to ask myself any question, am I okay with any answer? And what I used to be afraid of, I remember feeling it in my 20s and my early 30s going, oh my gosh, well, if I ask this question of myself, from whether it's my heritage, my culture, my religion, the path I want to live my life, you name it, however it is, if I don't decide what I believe, and if I'm afraid of the answer, I'll never really ask the tough questions of myself. So my main question is decide what you believe and live it, or statement. But the other part of that is okay, if I'm okay to ask any question, because I'm okay to get any answer, well, then all of a sudden I kind of open myself up to really anything. And you say, well, that's scary. Yeah, it can be. If you're not okay with the answer. Because sometimes we find out that, well, wait a second here, that's not what I believe. And that can be really like scary for some of us. But the second part of that is not only decide what I believe and live it, not only, hey, if I can ask myself any question, it really came down to also just simply saying, this is the other question, if no one told you what to believe, what would you believe? Now, some of you have, life's experience behind you, but some of us never really decide what we believe. Some of us just wander around on other people's beliefs and what other people told us we're supposed to believe. And it doesn't mean that you don't believe it. It just means that I'm challenging you to just ask yourself, do you believe it? Do you believe what your culture spoke of? Do you believe what your family spoke of? Do you believe what? Just ask yourself and take a moment that making sure that as you're moving through your life, that you're not just wandering, you're not just sideways constantly, you're not just doing whatever else wants you to do. Just ask, and you'll know what you want to do with your life. I'm not suggesting that it's not the exact same path that you're on. Just get conscious, become aware. As a Deepak Chopra will say, become a conscious observer to your life and ask yourself, do you really believe these things? By the way, when I started to observe what was going on in presentations, boy, things really opened up for me. When I started to observe, what is this relationship with this particular client? It's almost like I was over here observing it, even though I was in the middle of it. You say, that's a little freaky. Not really. Just from a standpoint of really observing, like, what are they feeling? What are they experiencing? What am I feeling? What am I portraying? What energy am I putting off? And all of a sudden, if I become a conscious observer in life, all of a sudden, man, you really start to move through life, I believe, in a much more beautiful way. You become mindful, conscious, aware. And some of us are walking through life as if we're like kind of dead to the world, and we're just moving through life. And so many things are coming at us that we forget to think, we forget to slow down for a moment, we forget to become an observer, to become conscious, mindful, aware. And so just remember how important that is. And the one word I constantly see in so many different levels of spiritual books, you want to call them scriptures or even the spiritual books that are out there from multiple different religions, is always this constant message: remember. Socrates even said, learning, I know Jason knows this, learning is what? Remembering. So since really the dawn of time, great teachers, spiritual leaders, philosophers, probably kings and queens and the people have always been of this mindset. Remember, basically wake up, remember, like in so many words, start reminding yourself of the path that you're on for your life. All right. Okay. So with that, let's, hold on. And then just this statement, because we're going to use it a lot. Just over here on this empathy thing, right? If I were you, how's it go? I feel the same way. Now, you'll see me when we do this right now, because I'll say it a few times, I'm sure. I might say, hey, if I were you, I'd think the same way. If I were you, I'd feel the same way. If I were you, I could see where you think and feel that way. I mean, I certainly am not going to always use feel. If someone's given deep thought to that, I might throw it with, hey, Greg, I can see that you've thought about this a lot. And if I were you, I'd probably think the same stuff too. Well, all of a sudden, when I've reduced all of the resistance, then they'll answer and ask, and they'll allow me to ask them any question. And just as a reminder, right, we said if people are comfortable, right, if they're comfortable, they allow you to lead. And we talked about the number one way, the number one building block to rapport is what? Hayden?
Yeah,
He said it.
great questions.
That's right. Right. So that's where we talk about those questions like what's most important. Right. This is the stuff that should be happening in between the scripts that you guys are using. Right. This is the stuff, right? Help me understand. Right. Tell me more. You know, what's most important? Oh, I said that. I'm sorry. Share with me. Right? And then the key one is there anything else? Okay, so that's kind of the baseline of what we're going to do today. We'll do this for like, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes, but just what I want to do is just whatever's going on in the market, and not to scare you, which I love seeing everybody here, Aubrey. But you know, I was fact checked yesterday. And you know what I was fact checked on? Because someone didn't believe me. They didn't believe, and it wasn't bad to not believe. I'm just going, hey, I'm going to check you. In the month of October, for the first time that I've ever seen in my 30 years in this business, I'm doing base camp. We're going to talk more about this part this morning, later this morning at 11. But the market dropped by 50% in a single month, and home sales across the Wasatch Front. That's never happened in the history of my 30 years in a 30-day period of time. And today, even the Federal Reserve is meeting, and I realize it's not a direct result from what the Fed does to what mortgage rates are, but they expect another 0.75% change. So I just want to point out something to you. That's real facts. And oh, by the way, I was wrong. I was talking about what the company's numbers were in a single month. So we're better than 4% off the market. So that's real. Just perspective. Last October, we closed 410 deals. This October, that's the facts. That's reality. So if I want to point something out, and I mean, I appreciate Tyler being here, we're meeting after it. I think it's probably fair to say that I ticked a lot of people off in May. Is that a fair statement? May is when I closed Centerville. May was when I sold, or June is when I sold Orem, and people thought you've lost your mind. How, what are you talking about? Well, great leadership does one great thing if they're great at it. They anticipate. And I'm certain that if you, I guarantee you tomorrow, if you're watching Tony Robbins, he's going to be talking about anticipation, not making it worse than it is, not making it better than it is, just calling it as it is. And this is the facts. This is the reality of October. And just so you know, November is not looking to be much better. So just awesome to have you here. You're in the right spot, just for the record. And the issue ultimately, which I'm going to talk about today, is there are such poor patterns that have been created with what the market has been between, we changed our patterns radically through COVID. And then some of us have stuck with those patterns. Of course, if you're in this room, you haven't stuck with them, but you people have stuck with these patterns that are basically making it to where they're part of the 50% that are not selling it. And yet, as I was doing with Jessica Terry yesterday, and some of you heard me talk about it, she's going to make about $100,000 to $200,000, $150,000 more than she made last year. So there's something different about maybe how she's approaching it. And part of it has to do with the structure that she's putting together in her life. So just get really conscious of what's happening. Do you realize that 75% of the lending industry, the entire industry, has been terminated? 75%, not loan officers, the staff to support it, those LOs in the industry And I actually said this number, and you know what? Another good friend of mine, he goes, it's actually higher. I bet you it's 85. I said, really? One of the top 10 banks just went out of business, Finance America, in the last 10 days. Top 10 world nationwide. So my words, you say, why do you talk about it? It scares them. Because you should not make it worse than it is, not make it better than it is. Call it as it is number one. And number two, shape what you want it to look like, write the plan, write the vision. And now number three, go execute. And if you don't pivot because of what you've anticipated or what the realities are, you all are going to have major problems. I will have major problems. So just major, but like really major, and say, okay, how do I get all this happening? Because even though I say this, that means there were still 400 plus sales in Salt Lake County where there was a realtor on each side of it. So there was 200 sales, but there was 400 commission checks that went out. You just need to get in the way of them. That's the key. Get in the way. All right. Got really quiet when I talk about that. People don't want to talk about reality. People always think I'm always so pie in the sky, happy go lucky. If you don't think that, but I really am. And I'm so positive, like I always say, hey, if the plane's going down, I'll be the survivor. You guys will all die, but I will make it. I guarantee. That'll be my belief. And it always is my belief. But my point is that, man, you got to wake up to the realities of what's really going on. And if you don't, and you keep on the same patterns of what you've been doing the last 2 years, not just the fact that you're in this meeting, but if you aren't prospecting, I was so happy to get a text from an agent yesterday who said, I prospected for 5.5 hours yesterday. I'd sent 5 people to the lender. I set 2 listing appointments. And he said, I realized when you talked to me about this, I said, if that is the case, he goes, I have got to give a 200% plus effort today. And that is what is necessary. And it ain't going to get better. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So if that scares you, it should. What it should do is, man, this stuff is more important than it's ever been in the history of our game right now. Because the person who's the best communicator, the best person to get connected, this is the stuff that will change the whole pathway of their career. Okay? Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I know.
Anybody
I
else?
was gonna state the obvious. Obviously, it's really, look, there's pinned up demand still. It's really more of a skill set lack in the agent populace that we're missing than business available. So the answer is by being in meetings like this, by training and testing and just really getting up and pushing through it will make you more than you've ever made. That was without a question. That's been the way it's been as long as I've been in real
Always.
estate.
It's always the same thing.
Yeah. So it's just be prepared.
Yeah.
Get your skill set better.
We'll talk more today about just like what's happening, but there'll be a rate hike after the midterms. It'll already be decided today. They won't let it out before the elections next week or tomorrow. Wait, next week, a week from today, right? A week from today. Today Wednesday? I don't know. I didn't sleep. I haven't been to sleep.
It's still Tuesday for Jordan.
Yes, right. Still Tuesday. It never ended. Just as we go through this, just realize that just so you have, you're not here on today at 11. You're going to see a rate hike of probably 0.75%. And you may say, well, the Fed rate versus mortgage rates. Look, right now, all that keeps happening is whatever they do on the Fed side, they just go over and do it on the mortgage side and all have matched it. There's been 5 rate hikes. This would be the 5th. There'll be another one in February. And the reality is most people believe that they'll mellow out in April. And everybody believes that they'll mellow out, meaning they'll kind of maybe drop a little bit. And then by the end of the year, just because all of a sudden the progression, the transition of the inflation and the issues that are all the free money that got printed. Someone asked me, are you mad about the money that's printed? No. I mean, in fairness, it completely helped in every way. But I knew there was going to be a day where you'd have to pay the piper. So if you got money in any way, shape, or form during COVID, just remember, this is now the moment that you have to settle down and pay it back. Because this is how you pay it back. But how you pay it back is you get extraordinary at this. I'm not worried about what I'm worried about is, will an agent pay the price, or they will continue to live in this la la land that this isn't actually happening. Remember, I'll talk about this again later today too, but you're either gonna get paralyzed and you're gonna do nothing. You're like, "Ah, what's happened?" Or you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. What do I do?" And you do nothing. So you just sit there paralyzed. And then the next group of people will just run. I better go get another job. I better go do something different. I gotta, okay, you can do that too. You can run or you can fight. Those are only the three choices. You're gonna just do nothing. You're gonna be paralyzed in this process. You're gonna be like, I don't know what to do. That's what you do. Just there's the answers to the test, right? The stuff we just talked about and more of it. But like some of you, I know that so many agents are still not prospecting. They're still waiting for business. They're not going out and getting business. We'll talk more about it too. So let's make sure we role play. Actually, there's so many people. Okay. What's some of the stuff that I just brought up some of the stuff, but what are you doing? Let's talk about some of the beliefs right now. What's going on right now in the marketplace? John, give me one.
Well, inflation for sure.
All right, sure. Yeah, but inflation is the reality, but what's the belief of a buyer or a seller today? Like what I want is what's stopping people from taking action?
Interest rates.
All right, right. So interest rates, but keep going, John. I'm sure there's something. Keep everybody and we'll pick one. You guys decide which one you want. Okay, we got interest rates, right? The rates are too high. I can't buy. Interest rates are too high. I can't sell because I can't go buy the next home. What else?
Oh, wait till prices come down.
Oh, wait till prices come down. Okay. If I can, if you guys write this down for me, please. Just even in your phone, just write it down. Just you got to believe that homes not only are still selling, right? That's the obvious. I say that a lot, but you have to have a belief right now that it's a good thing to. This is what I want you to write. It's a wise decision to buy or sell a home today. I'm fine with this, under the right circumstances. There are moments where, yes, it might make sense that this person rents their home versus sells it. I get that. But just I'm watching agents get stuck going, I don't know if it's really, I don't know if I would buy right now. Well, they say, because, well, I feel like I would be messing them over. Well, did you actually believe that the market always goes up for the rest of eternity and that there's never a decline? So does that mean that you have completely screwed over all the people who bought a home 6 or 12 months ago? Is that what you've done? Have you completely screwed them over? Have you completely been immoral, unethical, dishonest? Because in the last 6 to 12 months, do you believe that? No one believes. I don't think you believe. Do you believe that you hurt them? No. So I just want to point that out. So to believe that it's not a good thing now to buy a home, then you need to, if that's your belief, if that's the one we started with, I would say, well, could you please tell me what the 3 or 4 reasons why you believe it's not good? And then what I'm going to do is go, oh, well, first of all, hold on a second here. What about taxes? What about the fact that I love a statement that Mike Hancock made to me recently? He goes, hey, when you're paying rent, guess what? That's 100% interest. 100% interest if you're paying rent. So just ask yourself, is it still a good time to buy? Is it good that you're paying down a mortgage? And if you take even, how about this? The home I live in, still this day, was bought for $368,000 at the top of the market in Holiday in 2005. Top of the market, 2005. 2 years later, 2007, almost every mortgage bank and lender went out of business. The most worst economic disaster since the Great Depression for a 4-year period of time. And do you think I was thinking, oh gosh, what have I done? Well, do you know how, even with this market shift of the market's gone down 5% officially in Salt Lake County officially, but I know it's gone down more in certain segments of the market. That's just a whole. Do you think that my home is worth more now? It's worth 1.2 million. You say, whoa. So was I screwed over in 05 when it was at the top of the market? The answer is, if someone's going to live in their home for 1 year, well, yeah, they may not want to buy right now. But if they're going to buy, raise their family, create memories, stability, paying down the mortgage, and even this is what I used to say when the market was crashing. And even if it's not a good time, Tyler, and you buy that home, could you rent it and just keep going back to doing what you're doing? And what you always say to me, well, yeah. And the harder and the worse the market gets, guess what? The stronger and stronger what happens with the rental market. Better or worse? Better. So why would it not be a good decision to buy a home today? There is no reason that it's not a good reason, except you're like, well, I'd like it to be less. Great, but you sell your home for less, you go buy one for less. And if we believe that rates can be refinanced, then they'll refinance at some point with a better payment. Or have you started really look, if you're working with a mortgage bank right now, you can't even access these programs. But I sit there and ask myself with Spiro, are you doing 3-1, 2-1 buy downs? And people are reducing their homes by 10, 15, 20, $30,000. Have you gotten to know what it means to have a 3-1 buy down? That was an everyday occurrence in my beginning of my career. Rates were 9.5% when I got into business. And everyone was so excited because just months before that, they were 12%.
Right.
Months before it, like 2-3 months before, they were 12%. And people went in a sheer panic of excitement because they got to 9.5%. So really, just ask yourself, like, how are you approaching this business? Are you doing 3-2-1 buy downs, 5-1 arms, 7-1 arms? The reason that Inspiro switched to a mortgage bank, or sort of a mortgage bank, although I'm still a mortgage bank, I can do it. I don't want to do it, but it's because the broker business right now, with all the 11 different brokers that we have, is better for your client. The rate is at least 0.5% lower than any mortgage bank. And it is also better programs that fit the criteria of a changing and evolving market that will still happen for the next 2 years. So right now, when someone says it's not a good time to buy, well, interest rates are, I'm going to wait till prices come down, man. We're going to obliterate that because we have the answers. And once we have the answers to the reasons why they're doing and believing what they believe, well, then all of a sudden we'll be fine. Let's go buy a house. Let's go sell a house. Because we knock out this belief of it's not a good time to sell. It's not a good time to buy. Rates are too high. The prices are still going to come down. Your job is to get them on the right path to home ownership if you believe that it's a good time to buy. If you don't, you will never have the passion, energy, and certainty to convince them otherwise. You'll be like, oh yeah, I'm not buying either. So let's do nothing. We'll just sit here and wait. Really? Why? You want to know the great differentiator that I believe is going to happen in this country? It will have nothing to do with your color of your skin, your religion, your personal pathways of what your belief system is and what you identify as. Nothing. You know what's going to be? One thing. Who owns property and who does not? And you watch, that is what will be the differentiator between the US citizens. Who owns, who doesn't. So get serious about the importance of every person should own a piece of property. Because if they don't, and they don't get somewhere in the midst of that, and they don't jump in at some point in the river of it, they may never, ever in their lifetime own a piece of property. Because there was never the perfect time. Okay? So again, this is a good time to buy a house.
Yes.
Yes. Always is. Always is. Okay. Tyler.
Another thing to think about too, when people are wondering if they want to buy a house, did you guys know that between Hill Air Force Base and Dugway, there's over 55,000 jobs coming here?
Yes.
In addition to that, we have almost double that going into the new
Inland Port.
Port.
Yes.
Right? So it's going to become more and more expensive for you to purchase a home. So now's no better time than any other.
Yeah.
And then you can refinance later.
That's it. Control it. Control the asset.
Right now.
For sure.
And builders are still, I've watched multiple builders dig holes and then leave them there for 3 to 4 weeks and then fill the holes back in.
Yeah.
So that is going to push down on additional
Supply.
reasoning for people to want us to purchase, right?
Yep.
And we're gonna have less inventory. So just think about it too. If you're not selling right now, you're building up the dam, or when the interest rate comes down maybe 1%, you're gonna be busier than you've ever been before because you're not gonna be able to find homes.
That's it.
I really do believe
Love
this will be a short process, Tyler. I think we're talking about a 1 to 2 year max from a real estate perspective. I don't believe in 2 years, just for perspective. Do I think rates are going to be like 3 or 4%? No, I think they'll be somewhere around the 5 to 6%.
Why?
But just because it'll be enough to spur the economy and affordability will be there. And just they're gonna end the year probably around 7.5, maybe as close to 8. And by winter, they might even be 8. You gotta remember, the Fed changes. The first thing in a recession that's hit when the mortgage rates and the Fed rates change is what? What's the first economic, real estate is the number one thing hit historically over and over and over and over again. Historically is the first thing hit. So for you guys, you're like, what's going on? But do you realize that manufacturing, technology, healthcare, all these different segments of the marketplace are like crazy still on fire? And finally, a week and a half ago, Apple, Amazon, I think I mentioned this, all these different companies started laying off people for the first time. And so the hope is, did they overshoot it? There's no belief that there's not going to be at least a rate hike in the next basically 30 days. It's just the question is, will there really be one in February? And the hope is that there won't be. And that by April, it's mellowed completely out and we're on our way. And look, the stability, I'm going to talk about this later too, but the stability of the market and why this happens, this isn't going to sustain itself. This is because the rates went up 0.75%. But I do believe that the market officially will be off by 20%. But it's not going to remain every month at 50. By the way, that's the exact number for the company. We're off by 20% for the entire year, even with one, pretty bad month here. And do I believe that it might get up to the 2025s? Yes. But I believe that everything will probably be around 20 to 25% across the state. But the thing that you have to just recognize is just, this is because the rates went up 0.75%. How many people had someone who didn't qualify after those rates went up? Right. So I was talking to Dylan, right? He's one of the officers, and he had 4 deals under contract and 3 of them fell out just because of rates. They couldn't qualify out of the 4. I know that's disheartening for all of us, but just keep going. Keep going, John.
I've had 2 experiences where I've learned that it don't matter whether I think it's good that someone should buy or sell a home. If they want,
So well said, by the way. I hope everyone heard that, by the way, right? Sometimes we get anything, well, I wouldn't, this isn't even about you.
So the first experience with my parents, they owned a duplex and they wanted to sell it just so they could pay off the medical bill. And I'm like, let's find another way. You need to keep this duplex. And I was pushing back. They finally said, John, are we hiring you to sell it for someone else? And I said, well, I'd really like to buy it, but I can't, so let's put it on the market. Yes, ownership is crucial, but it's not my job. My job is to help people. And then when COVID hit, I couldn't outdoors, so I started calling my SOI. And Robert Arnold, who used to work here, said, yeah, sure, me and my wife sell our place and buy another one. I said, possibly, I think prices might go down for a while. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
And boy, did I screw him over because he didn't get a good place.
Yeah, it's great. It's great examples, but those are reasons, right? You've now given reasons that blow out these different beliefs, like I should wait, or interest rates when they come down, or I'm going to wait till this, I'm going to wait till that, right? As they wait, inflation continues to rise. Their buying power gets eliminated. I mean, there's so many reasons why it's a good thing to buy. Ruby?
I just wanted to add everything that you're talking about, being an observer, but also being innovative and creative. Because prices were inflamed so much, there's still money out there, so you can create win-win situations. If a seller is going to drop the price, maybe we can get our price to work so they can buy down their rate, so they can qualify, and or they can pay their closing costs. So is that a win for a buyer? Absolutely. Is that a win for a seller to get it sold? Absolutely. Are you working with your mortgage team? Are you working with your clients? Do you know how to negotiate with the listing agent? This is what's really important, to create that win-win situation. Be an observer, look at the whole situation. I had an agent call me saying, we already dropped the price 20 grand and now they're asking for 7 more grand. I'm like, have you talked to the lender yet? I go, are they able to raise the price 7 grand and have the seller pay concession 7 grand? oh, okay, let me call you back. She did that and it worked out great. The sellers didn't have to lose anymore, but the buyers win and they got qualified. So just take a step back before you react to a situation and let the deal fall apart. Ask your whole team and be creative and make it work. There's
Yeah.
money still that if they're going to drop it anyway, the seller get what they want and the buyer gets what they want. And it's a win-win situation. So just create that. Like I was just be creative and step back first before you react.
And I think it's really important to really repeat again what Tyler said.
Educate yourself. Yeah.
Guys, honestly, knowing those numbers and knowing that, that is such an incredible opportunity. That is a tsunami of business coming. And if you're prepared for it and ready for it, because those numbers are real, I've been following those. We're unique. And guess what? Prices will, because it's forced with supply and demand. People coming in, that's over 100,000 people. So we're gonna add, yes. So you look at that, I'm looking at it and salivating and going, oh my gosh, is it a good time? Yes,
Yeah. Utah will continue to become a refuge across the country.
yes.
You can be bothered
Yes.
by the conservative values. You can be bothered by thinking it should be more liberal. But I want to point some things out. Utah is out of debt. It is fiscally run to one of the most perfected states in the country, period. And despite what you may think and believe, people want to raise their families and run to the hills of Utah to do those things in the conservative values that are here. And despite whether you think that's not what you believe, that is the majority. Not the wackos on social media that you see the crazy stuff happening. If that's you, you can, do that somewhere else, which I know that's not any of you here. You may align with some of the beliefs and say, hey, what about this? What about that? But just look at the majority and don't forget we are still a democracy. Sometimes people forget that. And with that democracy, there's my I'm never gonna talk politics, but I talk politics all the time, don't I? I know, it's bad. The older I get, the more opinionated I get. So,
Can I make
okay.
more
all
comments?
right.
$1 billion hedge funds are moving in and calling homeowners and buying their property and holding them for that very reason. $1 billion hedge funds, they do anywhere from 10 to 25 year portfolio readouts. And they follow. Utah is the spot. So get in the game. What does your game look like and how are you getting your inventory? Because that's going to be the game changer, regardless of what the interest rate is.
It will be.
Period.
Yep, we're good. All right. Be here at 11 a.m. I'll be here at 11:10. And she knows that. Okay. All right. Let's rock and roll. Let's do some affirmations. We'll keep working on it. It's all about shifting your belief, and then you're going to shift your patterns of activity.